Good evening, my dear friends, and welcome to this deep exploration of the only reality that governs your life and the world you inhabit. Tonight, we do not speak of theory or hope. We speak of absolute, inviolable law, the law that dictates every single facet of your human experience. We stand here to uncover and embrace the secret of all secrets, the master key to making the entire universe respond, not with resistance or indifference, but with perfect, mechanical obedience to your will. We speak, my friends, of shaping reality itself, of molding the seemingly solid, tangible world through the absolute, sovereign power of your own wonderful human imagination. I know, with the certainty of one who has tested and proven this law in countless lives, what the conditioned, skeptical mind must be thinking. That mind, steeped in the old, limiting beliefs of external causality, cries out, "How can this claim be true? Neville, how can my subjective thoughts, my fleeting inner whispers, affect the hard, unyielding world around me? The bills in my hand, the medical diagnosis I received, the rigid temperament of the person I must deal with? Surely, the world of matter precedes and dictates my subjective experience." And to that deeply ingrained skepticism, I reply, not with simple assurances, but with a direct challenge to the very nature of your perception. Not only is the claim possible, it is the fundamental, operational bedrock upon which our entire existence is built. The world you perceive, the world you feel pressing in upon you, is nothing more and nothing less than a perfectly loyal reflection of your own consciousness. The universe is responding, moment by moment, to the state of imagination you hold about yourself. Let us begin our deep analysis by deconstructing this illusion of external solidity. If the world were truly solid and independent, if it were a fixed, unchangeable system of matter, how, fundamentally, could transformation ever occur? How could a life be redeemed from ruin? How could a long-standing illness suddenly dissipate? The very possibility of radical change, the fact that transformation is not only possible, but constantly occurring, that debt dissolves, that love blossoms, that fortunes are reversed, is itself the undeniable, perpetual proof that the underlying substance of reality is not matter but mind. It is plastic, it is subjective, and it is waiting for the impression of your thought. Consider the simple act of memory, or the profound experience of a vivid dream. When you recall a past event, where does that scene exist? It is complete, detailed, sensory, yet it is utterly without location in the objective world. When you dream, the stones feel hard, the fear is palpable, the characters seem wholly independent, yet, upon awakening, you realize the entire complex drama was synthesized, organized, and externalized by your own dreaming consciousness. This waking world is merely a persistent dream of a deeper nature. The chairs, the walls, the thoughts of others, they are all, as the scripture teaches us, the word that you, the creative agent, are speaking into existence. The material world is merely the shadow cast by the substance of your inner thought. The shadow cannot dictate to the substance. The reflection cannot command the source. If the reflection is displeasing, toiling with the reflection is utter futility. You must return to the source, the originating creative power within. This brings us to the precise definition of the term imagination. I must insist that you forever elevate your understanding of this word far above the trivial. I am not referring to the vague idle fantasies we use to escape our present discomfort, nor the simple skill of visualization. No, imagination is the human self in action. It is the ultimate creative fire, the very essence of the divine presence focused through your individual awareness. Your imagination, properly understood and applied, is your very self. It is God in action within you. This is the truth that separates the master from the slave. To imagine a thing is not merely to hope for it. It is to initiate its substance into being. Every single structure, every relationship, every dollar in the world today was, at its point of origin, a purely subjective, imaginal act. A word spoken in the silence of the human mind. The moment you imagine, you are not engaging in a mental exercise, you are participating in the creation of reality. You are laying down the blueprint. You are speaking the divine command. We have been imagining unconsciously, carelessly, allowing external circumstances to dictate our inner speech and form negative states. Our goal is to replace this destructive habit with deliberate, conscious, and continuous creation. This is the first step toward reclaiming your absolute divine sovereignty. Now, how does this universe, this grand cosmic engine, receive your command and execute it? It operates on a principle of perfect, instantaneous reception and delayed, perfect material manifestation. The universe is incapable of saying no to the state you occupy for the simple reason that you, the consciousness, are the only reality there is. There is no out there resisting your will. There is only in here being externalized. The world acts merely as a faithful, immediate reflector, a perfect universal mirror. This is why focusing on the how, the methods, the strategies, the external actions is a profound waste of your creative power. The universe does not require your engineering expertise. It requires your assumption. It requires you to occupy the state of the wish fulfilled so fully that the external world is compelled to rearrange itself to match your inner reality. Think of the mirror. If you look into a mirror and see a reflection of lack, you do not try to polish the mirror to change the reflection. You turn away from the mirror, you adjust the source, which is you, and the reflection changes instantaneously and without effort. The material world is that reflection. Its only function is to report on the state you are occupying. If the report is displeasing, you must change your internal posture. This understanding of the mirror principle leads us to challenge the greatest illusion of all, the illusion of time. We are conditioned to believe that our desires exist somewhere in the foggy future, requiring a linear progression of effort, struggle, and eventual arrival. This belief is the single greatest obstacle to creation. The truth is that all potential realities, every possible outcome you could ever desire, exist now as latent states of consciousness. They are not waiting to be created, they are waiting to be chosen and occupied. When you assume the state of the wish fulfilled, you are not pushing your desire into the future, you are pulling your awareness into the now of that fulfilled state. In the realm of the imagination, the act of desiring and the act of possessing are one and the same. The moment you truly assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you have collapsed the timeline. You have issued a command that the universe, bound by the law of its own nature, must obey. The delay you observe is merely the time it takes for the three-dimensional sensory world, the shadow, to reorganize its particles to match the absolute, immediate fact of your inner reality. This assertion is the ultimate freedom, but it comes with the greatest responsibility. The profound realization that your imagination is God immediately challenges the comfortable position of the victim. Most people prefer to believe in an external monster, a capricious government, a cruel fate, or an unjust system, because if the monster is external, they are not responsible. They can complain, they can blame, and they can remain comfortably stagnant. But I am here to tear down that comfort. You are the operant power in your life. There is no external monster that can touch you unless you, through a negative inner conversation, invite it into your world. The problems you face, the setbacks you endure, are not punishments from on high. They are simply the perfect, flawless externalization of the states you have unconsciously adopted. You created them, and if you created them, you possess the absolute, sovereign power to uncreate them. This acceptance of absolute authorship is the critical first step toward freedom. We are not here to debate philosophy. We are here to reclaim the throne of our own being. You must move from the question, "Why is this happening to me?" to the commanding statement, "I have chosen a state that manifested this, and I now choose a new state." This is the revolutionary principle that informs every single subsequent technique we will discuss tonight. The deconstruction of the 3D world, the divine definition of imagination, and the recognition of the universal mirror are not mere intellectual exercises. They are the essential preparation for the practical work ahead. understanding how the I Am establishes your sovereignty, how the law of assumption formalizes your choice, and most critically, how the inner conversation becomes the perpetual word by which you sustain your new reality. Accept this core assertion, and the entire structure of your old, limiting world must crumble, giving way to the divine architect you truly are. Now, let us proceed to establish the identity of the architect. Good evening, my dear friends, and welcome to this deep exploration of the only reality that governs your life and the world you inhabit. Tonight we do not speak of theory or hope. We speak of absolute, inviolable law, the law that dictates every single facet of your human experience. We stand here to uncover and embrace the secret of all secrets, the master key to making the entire universe respond, not with resistance or indifference, but with perfect, mechanical obedience to your will. We speak, my friends, of shaping reality itself, of molding the seemingly solid, tangible world through the absolute sovereign power of your own wonderful human imagination. I know with absolute certainty what the conditioned mind, the mind steeped in the old beliefs of external causality, must be thinking. You might challenge me. Neville, how can this audacious claim be true? How can my subjective, fleeting imaginings affect the hard, unyielding world around me? The bills in my hand, the medical diagnosis I received, the rigid temperament of the person I must deal with? Surely, the world of matter and hard facts precedes and dictates my subjective experience. And to that deeply ingrained skepticism, I reply with the certainty of inviolable law. Not only is the claim possible, it is the fundamental, operational bedrock upon which our entire existence is built. The world you perceive, the world you feel pressing in upon you, is nothing more and nothing less than a perfectly loyal reflection of your own consciousness. The universe is responding, moment by moment, to the state of imagination you hold about yourself. Let us begin our deep analysis by deconstructing this illusion of external solidity. If the world were truly solid and independent, if it were a fixed, unchangeable system of matter, how, fundamentally, could transformation ever occur? How could a life be redeemed from ruin? How could a long-standing illness suddenly dissipate? The very possibility of radical change, the fact that transformation is not only possible but constantly occurring, that debt dissolves, that love blossoms, that fortunes are reversed, is in itself the undeniable, perpetual proof that the underlying substance of reality is not matter, but mind. It is plastic, it is subjective, and it is waiting for the impression of your thought. Consider the simple act of memory or the profound experience of a vivid dream. When you recall a past event, where does that scene exist? It is complete, detailed, sensory, yet it is utterly without location in the objective world. When you dream, the stones feel hard, the fear is palpable, the characters seem wholly independent. Yet, upon awakening, you realize the entire complex drama was synthesized, organized, and externalized by your own dreaming consciousness. This waking world is merely a persistent dream of a deeper nature. The chairs, the walls, the thoughts of others, they are all, as the scripture teaches us, the word that you, the operant power, are speaking into existence. The material world is merely the shadow cast by the substance of your inner thought. The shadow cannot dictate to the substance. The reflection cannot command the source. If the reflection is displeasing, toiling with the reflection is utter futility. You must return to the source, the originating creative power within. When I employ the term imagination, I must insist that you forever elevate your understanding far above the trivial. I am not referring to the vague, idle fantasies we use to escape our present discomfort, nor the simple skill of visualization. No. Imagination is the human self in action. It is the ultimate creative fire, the very essence of the divine presence focused through your individual awareness. Your imagination, properly understood and applied, is your very self. It is God in action within you. This is the truth that separates the master from the slave. To imagine a thing is not merely to hope for it. It is to initiate its substance into being. Every single structure, Every relationship, every dollar in the world today was, at its point of origin, a purely subjective imaginal act, a word spoken in the silence of the human mind. The moment you imagine, you are not engaging in a mental exercise. You are participating in the creation of reality. You are laying down the blueprint. You are speaking the divine command. We have been imagining unconsciously, carelessly, allowing external circumstances to dictate our inner speech and form negative states. Our goal is to replace this destructive habit with deliberate, conscious, and continuous creation. This is the first step toward reclaiming your absolute divine sovereignty. This assertion is not simply a mystical belief. It is a practical mechanism, the one and only mechanism by which things come to pass. The universe does not operate on hope or pleading. It operates on assumption. To assume a state is to occupy it, to live in it subjectively, regardless of the contradictory evidence presented by your physical senses. You must recognize that the universe is incapable of saying no to the state you occupy, for the simple reason that you, the consciousness, are the only reality there is. The external world acts merely as a faithful, immediate reflector. It possesses no creative will of its own. It possesses only the capacity to confirm and amplify the state you have inwardly chosen. This immutable law of reflection operates with perfect, terrifying precision in every single moment of your existence. There is no randomness, there is no chance. There is only the unwavering fidelity of the outside world to the internal reality you have assumed. This profound realization immediately forces us to confront the core weakness of man, his tendency to believe he is a victim. Most people prefer to believe in an external monster, a capricious government, a cruel fate, or an unjust system, because if the monster is external, they are not responsible. They can complain, they can blame, and they can remain comfortably stagnant. But I am here to tear down that comfort. You are the operant power in your life. There is no external monster that can touch you unless you, through a negative inner conversation, invite it into your world. The problems you face, the setbacks you endure, are not punishments from on high. They are simply the perfect, flawless externalization of the states you have unconsciously adopted. You created them, and if you created them, you possess the absolute, sovereign power to uncreate them. This acceptance of absolute authorship is the critical first step toward freedom. We are not here to debate philosophy. We are here to reclaim the throne of our own being. You must move from the question, "Why is this happening to me?" to the commanding statement, "I have chosen a state that manifested this, and I now choose a new state." This is the revolutionary principle that informs every single subsequent technique we will discuss tonight. The deconstruction of the 3D world, the divine definition of imagination, and the recognition of the universal mirror are not mere intellectual exercises. They are the essential preparation for the practical work ahead. Understanding how your I am establishes your sovereignty, how the law of assumption formalizes your choice, and, most critically, how the inner conversation becomes the perpetual word by which you sustain your new reality. Accept this core assertion, and the entire structure of your old, limiting world must crumble, giving way to the divine architect you truly are. Now, we must move beyond the astonishing fact that imagination creates reality and turn inward to answer the most fundamental question asked of man. Who is the power that imagines? Who is the creative agent operating this divine mechanism? The answer, as simple as it is terrifyingly grand, is this. Your consciousness is God, and your fundamental identity is I am. This assertion is where conventional belief systems crumble. For millennia, humanity has been taught to look outward, upward, or backward for a source of power, to seek a deity separate and distinct from the self, one that must be placated, petitioned, or pleased. This externalized search for God is the root cause of human powerlessness and suffering. If the power resides outside of you, you are forever at the mercy of that external whim. But the law demands the opposite. The ultimate source of all creation resides, not in the clouds, but in the immediate, perpetual, present tense fact of your own awareness. Before you can say, I am rich, I am healthy, or I am free, you must first establish the silent foundational reality, I am. This simple declaration of being is the creative fire. It is the beginning of all things, and it is the only reality that sustains all things. You are not merely a creation of this power, you are the expression of this power. You are the very essence of the divine focused into an individual operating center. This acceptance of self-identity, that your consciousness of being is the sole creator, is the indispensable second step toward absolute self-mastery. We must be crystal clear about the nature of this consciousness, this I am. It is not a static concept. It is the dynamic, living, originating substance of reality itself. Consciousness is the ultimate canvas upon which all experiences are painted, the ultimate loom upon which all circumstances are woven. Everything you observe, everything you encounter, every person, every challenge, every triumph, it exists within your consciousness. And because of your consciousness, there is no world outside of your awareness that possesses independent causality. The entire objective reality, the world of the senses, is merely the externalized, materialized report of the internal reality of your awareness. To doubt this is to doubt the very power that sustains your heartbeat. This principle is the reason why philosophical study is secondary to self-recognition. You do not need volumes of academic study. You need only to observe the constant, ceaseless operation of your own mind. Whatever you attach to the I am is instantly and irrevocably accepted as the directive for creation. If you say, I am struggling, your infinite consciousness, having no judgmental capacity, says, let it be so. If you declare, I am abundantly supplied, the same infinite power says, let it be so. The power does not choose for you. It simply becomes whatever you attach to its name. The fundamental nature of the universe is not to resist, but to assent. This assent is immediate, and its manifestation is inevitable. The failure of men to see their desires externalized is never a failure of the power, but a failure of persistence in the identity they have claimed for the I am. The infinite I am expresses itself in the human experience through what we term states of consciousness. A state is a mindset, a persistent pattern of feeling, thinking, and believing. It is a way of being. Think of consciousness as a vast, limitless ocean. A state is simply a temporary wave or eddy within that ocean. The feeling of being wealthy, the feeling of being loved, the feeling of being confined. You, the actor, the I am, have the freedom to step into any state, to wear any identity as a costume. The mistake of the unawakened man is that he confuses the costume, the state, with the actor, the I am. He believes, profoundly and rigidly, that he is his current state. He is poor, he is sick, he is unloved. But the truth is, the state is only a role you are currently occupying, and the entire external world, that loyal mirror, is simply reflecting the reality of the costume you are wearing. The world does not respond to your wishes or your actions. The world responds only to the state you occupy. When you embody the state of the wish fulfilled, the state of being the desired person, the universe, which recognizes only the power of I am expressing itself, has no option but to rearrange all external circumstances to confirm the reality of that chosen state. It is compelled by law, not by magic. This is the mechanism by which the unseen becomes seen, the unheard becomes heard, and the possible becomes real. This leads us to the heart of the matter, the acceptance of your role as the operant power. This term must resonate with you. It means that you are the acting agent, the working cause, the single source of operation in your life. You are not a secondary cause merely reacting to forces. You are the primary, originating cause of every single experience, every encounter, and every apparent limitation you face. This is both the greatest burden and the greatest glory of human existence. The burden is the immediate removal of all excuses. You can no longer blame your parentage, your environment, your government, or your history. If the experience exists, your consciousness generated it, however unconsciously. Many find this terrifying because it suggests that the things they fear most are things they themselves have admitted into their reality. But the glory is the immediate, liberating realization that if you are the cause of the undesirable, you are also the absolute, sovereign cause of the desirable. The moment you accept that you are the operant power, you render all external problems impotent. A problem can only persist if you believe its power resides outside of your own consciousness. Once you accept that the power is within, that the problem is merely an externalized state, you have already secured its dissolution. To accept the operant power is to accept that you are the only one who can pull the creative levers, and therefore you are the only one who can stop pulling the levers that create lack. Let us make this intensely practical, removing the veil of abstraction. Think of a brilliant actor preparing for a role, say, a king or a beggar. The actor, the I am, remains the same person in essence, but to play the king successfully, the actor must internalize the state of royalty. He adopts the posture, the voice, the subtle assumptions of authority and wealth. He does not try to look like a king. He assumes the consciousness of the king. When he walks onto the stage, the other actors, the props, the lighting, the entire dramatic universe must conform to his assumed state. The other actors respond to him as king because he has fully occupied that consciousness. Similarly, to change your life, you must cease playing the role of the beggar, the victim, the one in lack. You must deliberately, with absolute conviction, assume the state of the king, the state of the wish fulfilled. The outer world is your stage. The people in your life are the co-actors. They have no choice but to respond to the state you are projecting. If you assume the state of confidence and wealth, your co-actors, your boss, your clients, your friends, will be compelled to confirm that state through new opportunities and increased respect. If you cling to the state of doubt and lack, they will likewise be compelled to confirm your poverty of spirit. Your human experience is nothing more than the drama playing out the roles you have chosen for the I am. To transition from the identification of the I am to the mechanics of creation, you must begin with the immediate sensory feeling of your current state. This is the crucial bridge. Neville Goddard does not teach you to suppress your feelings. He teaches you to use them as the ultimate barometer of your current creative reality. The feeling of lack is simply the signal that your I am is currently attaching itself to the state of lack. The feeling of joy is the signal that your I am is currently attaching itself to the state of fulfillment. Therefore, the first command in exercising your operant power is to know what you are feeling and why you are feeling it. Your present inner conversation and emotional tone are the signature of the state you are in, and that state is the current command issued to the universe. If you find yourself consistently living in a state that you do not desire to externalize, you have the immediate, sovereign power to interrupt that conversation and assume a new role. This metaphysical foundation, that I am is the sole creator, and all reality is built upon the states I choose to occupy, is the non-negotiable prerequisite for all successful manifestation. Your identity is established, your power is recognized. Now, we must learn the technique of its conscious deployment. The great overarching philosophical realization that you are the I am is the foundation, but a foundation requires a methodology for its construction. We move now from the metaphysical identity of the Creator to the mechanical law of creation itself, the law of assumption, which is, in its essence, the art of becoming. This law is the crucial bridge that spans the terrifying chasm between your present, unwanted reality and the glorious reality you choose to inhabit. We have identified that consciousness is the only reality. Now we must learn the technique to impose our chosen reality upon that consciousness. The law of assumption states, simply and unequivocally, that what you assume to be true, though currently denied by your senses, hardens into fact. This is the law that governs all phenomena. It operates regardless of whether you believe in it, understand it, or even apply it. Your current life is the perfect externalized report of the assumptions you have held, mostly unconsciously, about yourself, your capabilities, and the world around you. This is where we must draw a stark, unyielding distinction between the law of assumption and the futile exercise of mere wishing or the passive hope often associated with other teachings. The law of assumption is not the law of attraction. You do not attract what you want. You externalize what you are, or rather the state you assume to be your present identity. Wishing is weak. Wishing is a beggar asking for a favor. Assumption is the command of the sovereign king, whose inner conviction is already the law of the land. This brings us to the core technique of the law, the art of becoming. To assume is to become immediately and internally. It is not about trying to feel a certain way, nor is it about taking external actions to earn your desire. It is about organizing your internal world, your thoughts, your feelings, your reactions, your inner conversations so perfectly that they are all consistent with the identity of the person who has already realized that goal. You must stop waiting for the 3D world to confirm your desire and start operating from the internal conviction that the desire is already complete. This is the act of true faith, the faith that is required not by an external deity, but by the infallible law of your own being. And how does one truly become? The entire secret is contained within one single simple phrase. Feeling is the secret. This is not a call for wild, unsustainable emotional ecstasy. No. This feeling is far more profound. It is the feeling of reality, the natural, quiet, unshakable conviction that the state you have chosen is undeniably true now. It is the feeling of relief that the struggle is over. It is the feeling of security that the debt is paid. It is the feeling of calm certainty that the beloved relationship is flourishing. If you assume the state of wealth, the feeling that must accompany it is not excitement over new money, but the simple, pervasive peace of mind that comes with knowing financial security is permanent and absolute. That peace is the signature of the fulfilled state. The feeling of reality is the divine assent, the evidence that the subconscious mind, that infinite field of energy and cause, has accepted your command. The subconscious does not understand mere words or logical pleas. It understands feeling, just as a seed requires the feeling of fertile, moist earth to sprout. Your imaginal act requires the feeling of naturalness to be accepted and grown into the external world. If your imaginal scene, the inner dialogue, the sensory experience is accompanied by doubt, effort, or strain, the subconscious receives a mixed signal and the seed fails to germinate. The presence of naturalness in the feeling confirms that the I am has fully stepped into the new role, and the law of assumption is thereby activated. Therefore, the practice of the law of assumption demands that you live from the end. This is not a suggestion. It is a creative command. Living from the end means that the moment you identify what you desire, you immediately discard all thought of the steps, the strategies, the external movements, or the methods by which it will arrive. All focus must be on the end result, the scene, the feeling, the inner conversation that would naturally occur after the fulfillment has taken place. If you desire a new career, the end is not the job interview. The end is the feeling of sitting in your new, thriving office, hearing a colleague congratulate you on the successful outcome of a difficult project. You do not focus on the climb, you focus on the view from the summit. Why? Because the moment you focus on the how, you are immediately pulled back into the state of lack, the state of doubt, the state of effort. The law of assumption requires effortless being, not exhausting doing. This practice of living from the end requires the absolute courage to disregard the evidence of the senses. This is the greatest hurdle for the unawakened man. When you assume a new state of health, your physical body may still report pain. When you assume wealth, your bank balance may still report lack. The conditioned mind shouts, "This is not true. I must believe what I see." But you, the awakened student of the law, must understand that the external world, what we call the 3D world, is simply the residual effect, the stale, slow-moving shadow of the past state you occupied yesterday. The 3D world is merely a historical record. It is not the current creative reality. To give power to the sensory evidence is to resurrect yesterday's defeated state and force yourself to relive it. You must have the fierce, unyielding discipline to look at the contradictory facts and declare, "You are a liar. You are the shadow of an assumption I no longer hold. My true reality exists within, and I am the operant power." The law of assumption is deterministic. It is not probabilistic. Once the assumption is truly impressed, once the feeling of reality is achieved, the manifestation is inevitable. The universe, being a mechanism of perfect reflection, is compelled to rearrange all people, all circumstances, all events to confirm the reality of your chosen state. This process often occurs through means far more surprising, far more harmonious, and far more effortless than your logical mind could ever devise. Your role is simply to assume. The universe's role is to deliver. To fail in manifesting is not a failure of the law. It is a failure of persistence in the assumption. We will delve deeper into this critical concept of persistence and dealing with doubt when we discuss the indispensable technique of inner conversation, which is the tool used to maintain the assumed state against the inevitable challenges of the sensory world. But for now, establish this foundational knowledge. The law of assumption is the law of God. It is the technique of immediate internal transformation. You are the I am, and the moment you assume a new state and embody the feeling of reality, the art of becoming is complete, and the external world is set into irreversible motion to confirm your divine choice. You must assume the consciousness of the person you wish to be, and you will, by divine law, become that person. This is the unwavering power of the law of assumption. The law of assumption is the unwavering power, but a law requires a laboratory, and creation demands a specific, sacred environment for the seed to be successfully planted. We move now from the philosophical necessity of assuming a state to the ultimate practical technique for implanting that state directly into the creative subsoil of your being. The state, Akin To Sleep, or SATS. This is the application that utilizes the deepest principles of your own physiological and metaphysical design, turning the common act of resting into a precise, deliberate act of creation. It is the master key for the one who understands that creation is not a battle to be won in the conscious, waking world, but a secret impression made upon the receptive darkness of the subconscious. SATS is the ultimate method because it capitalizes on the moment of transition, that precious, fluid period when the conscious mind, the habitual sensor and the source of all resistance and doubt, begins to relax its iron grip. As your body sinks into ease and your thoughts slow, the portal to the subconscious mind, the fertile ground, the very seat of infinite creative intelligence, swings wide open. This is not a time for planning, for worrying, or for replaying the defeats of the day. This is a time of immaculate conception, where your imagination can impress its chosen reality without the interference of logic, criticism, or sensory evidence. You must treat this moment, the moment you are drowsy, relaxed, and unable to maintain sustained, effortful thought, as the most sacred period of your entire day. The first step in SATS is the creation of the imaginal scene. This scene is the seed you intend to plant. It must be crafted with divine precision. Do not create a long, complicated cinematic drama encompassing the entire journey of your desire. The scene must be brief, simple, and contain only one event that unequivocally implies the fulfillment of your wish. If you desire a specific sum of money, the scene is not the frantic process of earning it. The scene is the quiet feeling of seeing the final, thrilling balance on your bank statement, or the touch of a clean, new deed to your property. If your desire is a loving relationship, the scene is not the first date. The scene is the feeling of your partner's familiar hand on your shoulder, as you both drift off to sleep, accompanied by the inner whisper, "I am so grateful we found each other." The scene must be short, repeatable, and centered entirely on the emotional aftermath of the desire already being realized. Once the scene is crafted, you must move into the true work of SATS, sensory immersion, and the pursuit of naturalness. You must use your imagination to enter the scene as if you are physically there. Now, you must engage all your senses, making the experience intensely real to your inner being. Don't just see the office, feel the cool, polished texture of the desk where your promotion has placed you. Don't just hear a friend's voice. Feel the genuine, heartfelt warmth and conviction in the congratulations they offer. The more richly you clothe your imaginal act in sensory detail, the more completely the subconscious accepts it as a memory, a current fact of your existence. This is where the practice transcends simple visualization and becomes true, living creation. This pursuit of sensory detail is entirely dedicated to achieving the master key of this law, naturalness. Naturalness is the feeling that the scene you are experiencing is utterly normal, ordinary, and expected. It is the comfortable certainty that, of course, you have this beautiful home. Of course, you possess this excellent health. Of course, this abundance is yours. It is the feeling of relief, not the feeling of desperate excitement. Excitement is fleeting. Relief is deep and lasting, indicating the mind is at rest because the issue is settled. If you feel strain, effort, or an overpowering excitement that suggests the event is extraordinary or foreign, then the subconscious will reject the scene as a fantasy. The scene must feel as natural as knowing the layout of your own bedroom in the dark, as familiar as the sound of your own name. Naturalness is the hallmark of acceptance. To ensure this naturalness, the scene must be looped. As you lie in that wonderfully drowsy, relaxed state, you must play the short sensory scene over and over again. Do not rush the process. Sink into the feeling, savor the sensory details, reach the peak of that natural, calm conviction, and then gently repeat the scene. You continue this repetitive sensory loop until one of two things occurs. Either the scene feels so overwhelmingly real and natural that you sense a profound click of finality, a deep inner peace that the work is done, or, and this is the preferred method, you gently and seamlessly dissolve out of the imaginal scene and into the oblivion of sleep. The last feeling, the last scene, the last inner word impressed upon the mind before sleep is the command that is carried forward into the creative forces during your night of rest. It is the seed that is planted in the most fertile darkness. It is critical to understand why this timing is non-negotiable. During the waking hours, the conscious mind is dominant, constantly reacting to the external world, comparing the desire to the sensory evidence of lack, and generating resistance. But as you enter Sats, the conscious God steps down, and the subconscious, that vast, non-judgmental power that executes every command, is most receptive. By planting the state of the wish fulfilled at this precise time, you harness the power of your entire being. The work you do in those 10 to 15 minutes before sleep is more powerful than days or weeks of frantic, effortful action in the 3D world. You must dedicate yourself to making this Sats period a sacred, non-negotiable ritual, the foundation upon which your new reality is built. However, Sats is the planting of the seed, but the seed must be watered and protected throughout the day. This is the crucial logical link to our next essential technique. Sats provides the initial, powerful impression, but what happens immediately upon waking? The sensory world rushes in with its contradictions. This is why the technique of Sats must be immediately followed by the continuous discipline of inner conversation. Sats sets the program. Inner conversation is the daily maintenance and defense of that program. You cannot plant the seed beautifully at night only to spend the entire day digging it up with worry and doubt. The success of your Sats practice is entirely dependent on your commitment to maintaining the feeling of naturalness and fulfillment after you open your eyes. Therefore, let us now turn our attention to the constant, living expression of your assumed state, the powerful tool that defends your seed and ensures its inevitable harvest, the absolute, creative necessity of inner conversation. Before we proceed to examine the indispensable technique for maintaining this creative command throughout the waking day, I must pause and address you directly. The profound truth we are sharing this evening, the absolute knowledge that you are the sole operant power, is a message that can shatter the chains of limitation for every sincere seeker. This law is not a secret to be kept. It is a fundamental truth that must be proclaimed and proven. If the weight and truth of this teaching resonates within your soul, If you feel the immediate recognition that this is the missing piece in your understanding of creation, then I implore you, do not let this connection be temporary. This journey of conscious creation requires continuous reinforcement, detailed clarification, and a community of those who understand and apply this truth daily. This channel is dedicated to unraveling every layer of the law of assumption, proving the mechanism through countless examples, and guiding you toward the absolute mastery of your own consciousness. We are building a collective of sovereign creators who refuse to accept the narrative of external limitation. Therefore, I issue this command, not as a request for support, but as a challenge to affirm your commitment to your own awakening. Take a moment now and subscribe to this channel. Join the community of those who understand that human imagination is God. By subscribing, you are ensuring that your intellectual and spiritual environment is constantly saturated with the truth of your divine power. You are casting a vote for the reality you wish to inhabit. The greatest enemy of success is distraction and reversion to the old narrative. Ensure that your mind remains fixed on the true source of power. Do not delay your decision. Affirm your commitment now, and let us proceed immediately to master the daily discipline required to maintain this sacred creative command. The success of your SATS practice is entirely dependent on your commitment to maintaining the feeling of naturalness and fulfillment after you open your eyes. Therefore, let us now turn our attention to the constant, living expression of your assumed state, the powerful tool that defends your seed and ensures its inevitable harvest, the absolute, creative necessity of inner conversation. If SATS is the sacred act of planting the seed of your desire in the fertile soil of the subconscious mind, then inner conversation is the daily lifeblood, the continuous sustenance, and the vigilant defense required to ensure that seed grows and matures into physical reality. Creation does not cease when you leave the state akin to sleep. Creation is a relentless, perpetual process, and the currency of that creation is the dialogue you maintain in the privacy of your own mind. We must understand, unequivocally, that your inner dialogue is not merely a reflection of your mood. It is the word that you are speaking into existence. The entire world, the entire complexity of your external experience, is nothing more than the physical manifestation of your inner conversation pushed out. Every outer circumstance you experience today was first and always a sustained, dominant conversation you held within yourself yesterday. Your relationships, your financial security, your health, these are all perfectly executed reports of the dialogue you have consistently maintained in silence. This must compel you to recognize the profound, non-negotiable sovereignty of the inner word. When the scripture declares, "In the beginning was the Word," it is speaking of this very internal creative utterance. The outer world cannot contradict the inner word, it is compelled to conform to it. This truth forces us to draw a stark line between inner conversation and outer conversation. The outer conversation, the idle chatter, the gossip, the reaction to news, the complaint about traffic, is merely the superficial noise of the 3D world. It is the noise of the reflection reporting on the shadow. The inner conversation, however, is the primary cause. You may smile and nod politely in an outer conversation, agreeing with a friend's complaint about the lack of opportunity, but if your inner conversation remains steadfastly focused on the gratitude for your own overflowing abundance, the outer world's complaint is powerless to affect you. Your inner state will always override the fleeting reality of the external world. The discipline we now speak of is the rigorous, moment-to-moment commitment to ensure that your inner dialogue is entirely consistent with the state you chose to assume in SATS. This is the art of deliberate dialogue. It is the continuous, conscious practice of speaking from the end, not about the end. You do not talk about how difficult it is to get wealth. You speak as the wealthy person. Your inner conversation is always in the present tense, focused on gratitude and rooted in certainty. When you wake, the first inner conversation must be, "I am so deeply grateful for the peace and security that my financial freedom provides." When you face a large contradictory bill, your inner conversation must be, I handle this with ease. My supply is infinite, and I am grateful for the services rendered. The language is simple, not complicated. The feeling is calm, not manic. The feeling that must accompany this dialogue is the feeling of naturalness, the quiet conviction that what you are speaking is simply a statement of fact, as familiar as describing the color of the sky. The greatest challenge to this continuous creative act is the battleground of the 3D world. The external circumstances, the shadows of your past, unawakened assumptions will relentlessly try to lure you back into the old, comfortable, negative conversation. You will see lack, you will hear criticism, and the tendency of the conditioned mind will be to immediately react with fear and doubt. This reaction is the very essence of failure, for it immediately reverts your creative command to the old program. Your task in the waking hours is not to eliminate the external challenge. Your task is to refuse to allow the external challenge to dictate your inner conversation. The moment a doubt arises, the moment a circumstance contradicts your state, you do not fight the circumstance. You simply interrupt the inner reaction and immediately return to your chosen dialogue of gratitude and certainty. You become the vigilant guard at the gate of your mind, allowing no conversation that denies the fulfilled state to linger. This persistence, this deliberate return to the inner word, is the highest form of spiritual discipline and the true measure of your faith in the law of assumption. We are not teaching a passive exercise. We are teaching relentless, conscious operation. The inner conversation is the constant friction that files away the chains of your past limitations. It is the living expression of the I am. However, despite our best efforts, we are human, and we will inevitably slip. There will be moments where the sensory world overwhelms us, and we catch ourselves engaging in the old, destructive dialogue of fear or frustration. These moments are not reasons for self-condemnation. They are simply signals. They are proof that a negative thought seed has been planted, and it must be dealt with immediately before it takes root and manifests. This necessity of instantaneous correction, the absolute imperative to undo the damaging inner conversation. The moment it is detected leads us to the final and most powerful technique for maintaining and defending your chosen state. We must learn not only to maintain the perfect dialogue in the present, but to instantly neutralize the negative dialogue of the immediate past. This is the profound importance of the coming discipline, the art of revision, and the foundational commitment of the discipline of 3 days. This necessity of instantaneous correction, the absolute imperative to undo the damaging inner conversation. The moment it is detected leads us to the final and most powerful technique for maintaining and defending your chosen state. We must learn not only to maintain the perfect dialogue in the present, but to instantly neutralize the negative dialogue of the immediate past. This is the profound importance of the coming discipline, the art of revision, and the foundational commitment of the discipline of 3 days. The work of the awakened man is not merely to create the new, but to meticulously and ruthlessly dismantle the old, self-limiting creations that constantly threaten to pull him back into the shadows. We establish that the inner conversation is the living word, the creative command that immediately impresses the subconscious mind. Since the subconscious is non-judgmental and operates by the law of assent, any moment of fear, frustration, self-criticism, or failure we allow to linger in the inner conversation becomes a negative command, a destructive seed planted in the garden of your mind. We are human, and slips are inevitable. We will find ourselves reacting to the 3D world, briefly forgetting our sovereignty, and engaging in the very dialogue of lack we swore to forsake. This is not a reason for self-condemnation, which is merely another destructive conversation. It is a signal, a clear, immediate sign that the creative record requires editing. This is the moment where the art of revision becomes your indispensable, moment-to-moment spiritual armor. Revision is the act of rewriting the past to correct the present and reshape the future. We must discard the rigid, common belief that the past is a fixed, unchangeable record. This is a profound illusion created by the sensory world. The past only exists within your consciousness. And since your consciousness is the sole reality, whatever you revise in your consciousness instantly and absolutely changes the history of your reality. You are the divine author, and the past is merely a manuscript that you possess the sovereign right to edit at any moment. When you catch yourself having engaged in a painful outer experience, a harsh word spoken, a moment of acute financial worry, or a feeling of rejection, you must immediately close your eyes, however briefly, and perform the revision. You are not denying the fact that the event occurred. You are recognizing the flawed inner conversation that caused the event, and you are correcting the cause. The technique itself requires the same sensory richness and commitment to naturalness as SATs. You must recall the negative scene, and then deliberately, consciously rewrite the dialogue and the outcome. If a colleague criticized your work, you do not recall the criticism. You recall the scene, and instead imagine hearing that colleague offer you high praise, shaking your hand with genuine respect, or confirming the excellence of your contribution. You must inject the emotional reality of the corrected scene, feel the warmth of the handshake, hear the exact congratulatory words, and experience the internal relief that the event was harmonious. You continue this loop of the revised scene until the new memory feels more true, more natural, and more real than the flawed one it is replacing. When the new scene achieves the feeling of reality, the old event is metaphysically nullified. It ceases to exist as a causal force in your life, and the universe, that faithful reflector, must begin rearranging itself immediately to confirm the new, corrected memory. The highest application of revision is to the negative inner conversation itself. If you spend 5 minutes internally chastising yourself for a mistake, that 5 minutes must be retrieved and revised. You must replay those 5 minutes. But this time, your inner voice is speaking words of unconditional self-acceptance, recognizing the divine lesson and confirming your inherent capability. This is the ultimate act of self-love and the most powerful form of self-forgiveness. You are taking responsibility for the negative words spoken in the past and retracting the creative command before it has time to harden into concrete manifestation. Revision is not merely a psychological trick. It is the spiritual hammer used to break the chains of consequence. This brings us to the crucial commitment that accelerates the manifestation process, the discipline of 3 days. The number 3 is not an arbitrary figure. It is the metaphysical symbol of completion, transformation, and resurrection. I tell you now, the human mind and the subconscious requires a period of absolute unyielding commitment to completely change its creative momentum. You must commit to a period of 3 complete days, 72 hours, where you will maintain the new state and, more importantly, defend it using continuous, immediate revision. During these 3 days, you cannot afford to waver. You cannot allow doubt, fear, or any form of negative inner speculation to linger unchallenged. Every external contradiction, every critical word received, every moment of self-doubt must be met instantly and ruthlessly with the art of revision. This discipline is the test of your faith and the proof of your commitment to the law. If you persist in this discipline for 3 days, maintaining the assumed state and immediately revising any breach of the inner conversation, you are performing a profound creative act. You are completely and forcibly interrupting the old cycle of creation. You are successfully planting the new seed so deep within the subconscious that the old roots are starved of attention and must wither away. The 3-day period signifies the completion of the creative shift. Once the new state has been continuously maintained for this period, it becomes the new dominant reality, and its manifestation is no longer a possibility, but a certainty. You have set forces in motion that cannot be stopped. Furthermore, revision is the ultimate expression of the unity principle we established. No others. When you revise an experience with another person, when you rewrite that argument into harmony or that judgment into praise, you are not trying to manipulate them. You are recognizing that their negative response was simply a reflection of an inner conversation you were maintaining about them or about yourself. Revising the scene in your imagination is an act of ultimate forgiveness, recognizing the oneness of all beings. Since the world is you pushed out, revising the external event is simply correcting the flaw in the mirror. You correct the flaw within your own consciousness, and the person, being merely a reflection, must instantly and inevitably confirm the new, harmonious state you have assumed. This discipline, the meticulous, continuous maintenance of the perfect inner conversation, buttressed by the instantaneous, compassionate act of revision, is the final and most powerful armament required for the awakened man. It is the tool that ensures your SATS practice is not undermined by the chaos of the waking day. This comprehensive discipline prepares you for the ultimate confrontation that inevitably follows the assumption of a new state, the clash with the stubborn, slow-moving, contradictory evidence of the sensory world. With revision in your hand, you are ready to face those inevitable challenges, to maintain your composure, and to stand firm in the certainty of the fulfilled state, leading us directly to the necessary commitment required for overcoming the obstacles and proving the law. This comprehensive discipline, the consistent use of SATs and the surgical correction of revision, prepares you for the ultimate confrontation that inevitably follows the assumption of a new state, the clash with the stubborn, slow-moving, contradictory evidence of the sensory world. With the weapon of revision in your hand, you are now ready to face those inevitable challenges, to maintain your composure, and to stand firm in the certainty of the fulfilled state, leading us directly to the necessary commitment required for overcoming the obstacles and proving the law. This is the phase of the work where the truth of the metaphysical foundation is either solidified into unshakable fact or allowed to dissipate into temporary hope. You have assumed the role of the king, and now the old world will test the reality of your crown. The very moment you sincerely impress the state of the wish fulfilled upon your subconscious mind, the moment you fully execute the law of assumption, a new creation has begun. However, the external world, the 3D reality, is slow. It is the residue of the beliefs you held yesterday, the echo of the conversations you maintained last week. Therefore, a gap always exists between the absolute, immediate reality of your consciousness and the sluggish, delayed reality of the sensory world. This gap is the inevitable test of your faith, and it is here, in this interim period of contradiction, that most seekers falter. They look at the external world reporting lack, disease, or rejection, and they allow the reflection, the shadow, to command the source, their own consciousness. To overcome this obstacle, you must master two concurrent disciplines: persistence against the external world and composure against the internal foe of doubt. Let us first address the enemy within. Doubt. Doubt is not a spontaneous infection. It is simply the old, defeated state of consciousness making a final, desperate attempt to reclaim its dominance. When a negative thought or a familiar feeling of failure surfaces, the natural tendency is to fight it, to argue with it, or to use force to suppress it. But I tell you now, what you resist persists. By fighting the doubt, you give it energy, you acknowledge its power, and you place the very thing you fear into the foreground of your attention. The technique for overcoming doubt is not force, but gentle, unwavering redirection. The moment the doubt whispers, "This isn't working, I still have no money," you must immediately, gently, and lovingly return to the inner conversation and the assumed state. You say to the doubt, "Thank you for sharing that old story, but I know the truth. My supply is infinite, and I am grateful for the peace it brings me." You do not debate with the old state. You simply refuse to entertain its company and return to the state of the king. The continuous, persistent, yet effortless return to the chosen reality is the only way to starve the old state of the attention it requires to survive. Next, we must face the external foe, the 3D world. This world will be your most persistent critic, your most stubborn obstacle. It will present evidence, actual, physical evidence that contradicts your assumption. You may assume perfect health, only to receive a troubling medical report. You may assume a loving partner, only to experience unexpected friction in your current relationship. This is the moment where the law requires genuine, unyielding persistence. The quality that is not about striving, but about steadfastness. You must recognize the 3D world for what it is, the residual effect of past unconscious creation. It is the ghost of your former self. You cannot and must not allow the shadow of the past to determine the creative command of the present. Disregarding the senses is the spiritual imperative here. Look at the contradictory evidence, acknowledge its physical reality in this moment, and then firmly turn your attention inward, maintaining the feeling of the state you have chosen. You must have the fierce conviction that your internal reality is the only true reality, and the external world is merely slow to catch up. Persistence, therefore, is not trying to make the thing happen. It is the unwavering commitment to be the person who already has it. The law of assumption is absolute, and its power is proven daily in the lives of those who master this persistence. I speak now not as a theorist, but as a messenger of a law, proven countless times through practical, tangible results. I knew a woman, a diligent seeker, who had been denied a necessary transfer for years, despite her fervent effort and qualifications. She came to me disheartened, believing external forces were against her. I instructed her to ignore the letters of denial and the discouraging words of her superiors. Her task was to commit to the state of the wish fulfilled, to feel the simple relief of being in the new location, to feel the texture of the desk in her new office, and to hear the celebratory inner conversation with her husband. She applied SATs nightly and used inner conversation throughout the day. She persisted, even when the final official letter of rejection arrived. She revised the rejection letter instantly, tearing up the imaginal letter and hearing the newsreader announce the transfer. Within 3 weeks, the entire department was unexpectedly dissolved, and she, along with others, was transferred, not to the location she desired, but to a superior location, arranged by circumstances that defied all corporate logic. The law is always working, my friends. Her persistence was not in fighting the external system. Her persistence was in refusing to allow the external system to dictate the reality of her consciousness. Consider another case. The artist who required sudden, significant financial relief despite being in deep, visible debt. His sensory evidence screamed poverty. His inner conversation had habitually been one of worry and fear. His breakthrough came not through harder work, but through dedicated persistence in the assumed state. He committed to revising his inner conversation, speaking constantly, "I am abundantly supplied. My work is highly valued and compensated." He committed to feeling the naturalness of abundance, even as the bills piled higher. His persistence was tested fiercely, yet he clung to the internal reality. And the law responded. An old acquaintance, whom he had not seen in years, suddenly appeared and offered him a large commission for a series of paintings that exactly cleared his outstanding debt and left him with a surplus. The law did not ask for his strategy. The law only asked for his persistent assumption, and the universe compelled the circumstance and the person into his experience. Persistence is the key because it demonstrates to the subconscious mind, which knows only the power of repetition and feeling, that the new state is dominant. It demonstrates that you, the operant power, are unwavering. You are not waiting for proof from the 3D world. You are commanding the 3D world to provide proof of your internal state. When faced with a seeming failure, you do not regress. You do not ask, "Why did this not work?" You immediately utilize revision to correct the immediate past and double down on the inner conversation of the fulfilled state. Your commitment must be absolute. The manifestation is not a possibility, it is an inevitability so long as the state is maintained. Persistence is simply the unwavering maintenance of the law of assumption in the face of temporary, contradictory shadows. This relentless commitment to persistence, this unwavering faith in your own consciousness, is the final, indispensable requirement for the spiritual maturity of man. It transforms the seeker from a passive hopeful into an absolute commanding creator. And this power, this operant power, must be understood in its ultimate context. The truth that your success is inherently tied to the success of all creation. This seamless connection leads us to the final grand principle that governs not only your persistence, but the very nature of your being and the ethical deployment of your power. No others, the oneness of consciousness. This commitment to persistence, this unwavering faith in your own consciousness, is the final, indispensable requirement for the spiritual maturity of man. It transforms the seeker from a passive hopeful into an absolute, commanding creator. And this power, this operant power, must be understood in its ultimate context, the truth that your success is inherently tied to the success of all creation. This seamless connection leads us now to the final, grand principle that governs not only your persistence, but the very nature of your being and the ethical deployment of your power. No others, the oneness of consciousness. This assertion is the capstone of our entire discussion, the highest revelation of the law of assumption, and perhaps the most difficult truth for the ego to swallow. I must state this truth boldly, without reservation, and with the utmost certainty. There are no others. I know that the sensory world presents a vast array of unique individuals, each seemingly possessed of their own independent will, their own motivations, their own causality, but I assure you, based on the absolute law of consciousness, that the people you encounter in your life, your friends, your adversaries, your loved ones, your enemies, are all of you pushed out. They are reflections, meticulously crafted and perfectly externalized, of the assumptions you hold within your own consciousness regarding them and regarding yourself. They are co-actors, compelled by the script you are projecting from your inner being. This principle, commonly known as everyone is you pushed out, is not intended to suggest that other people are inanimate objects or lack their own awareness. No. It means that your experience of them, your interaction, their apparent kindness or cruelty, their success or failure in relation to you, is solely determined by the inner conversation you maintain about them. If you assume your boss is unfair and critical, your boss, being compelled to confirm your assumption, must manifest that critical behavior toward you. If you revise that assumption and choose to speak internally only of your boss's fairness, generosity, and respect for your work, that person, being merely a mirror, must immediately begin to reflect those qualities back into your experience. You are not manipulating them. You are changing the internal cause that was compelling them to play a negative role in your drama. We must delve into the mechanics of this reflection, for it is profoundly practical. Consider a strained relationship with a loved one. You are constantly waiting for them to apologize, to change, to be more loving. This waiting is based on the assumption that they possess an independent flaw that only they can fix. The law of oneness teaches the opposite. The strain exists because you are maintaining an inner conversation, a belief, a fearful assumption about their capacity for rejection or unkindness. The moment you use your imagination to see them, feel them, and speak of them internally as the loving, supportive, ideal partner you desire, that state is impressed upon the infinite field of consciousness that contains both of you. Since there is only one consciousness, your new assumption about them compels their external behavior to align with the new, desired state. They must either manifest the desired characteristics or gently fade from your experience, making room for a person who naturally aligns with your new, higher assumption. This absolute truth leads us to confront the most crucial question regarding the ethical deployment of your power. The law is neutral. Like the fundamental law of gravity, the law of assumption does not distinguish between what you might label good or bad. If you assume harm, the law will faithfully externalize harm. If you assume blessing, the law will manifest blessing. This neutrality raises the moral imperative. Can one use this tremendous power selfishly or to harm others? The answer, intellectually, is yes, but the act is fundamentally self-destructive. If there are no others, then the person you harm is ultimately yourself pushed out. Any ill will you project upon another is merely a negative command issued to your own being, which must eventually return to you. The highest wisdom, therefore, demands that the application of this law be rooted in love and blessing. The ultimate, most powerful use of your imagination is to imagine lovingly for all beings. When you consciously assume health, success, and fulfillment for your neighbor, your friend, or your colleague, you are not merely doing a good deed. You are sowing seeds that must ultimately be returned to you multiplied, because you are sowing them in the only field that exists, your own consciousness. This profound realization immediately renders competition obsolete. Competition is based on the delusion of separation, the fearful belief that there is only so much gain to go around, and one person's success must necessitate another's loss. But the law of oneness assures us that because the source is infinite, there is no lack of supply, only a lack of conscious assumption. Your success does not detract from mine. Rather, your success is a validation of the creative power we share, which is the I Am. This unity principle elevates the previously discussed technique of revision to its highest spiritual meaning. Revision is the ultimate act of universal forgiveness. When you revise a harsh word spoken by an adversary, or revise a perceived betrayal, you are not acting out of weakness. You are recognizing that the outer action was merely a reflection of a state of fear or conflict that you, perhaps unconsciously, were entertaining within yourself. By revising the external event, you are correcting the internal cause, thereby forgiving yourself for the mistake of that past negative assumption. You heal the cause, and the effect, the relationship, the interaction, the perception must be immediately transformed. Forgiveness, therefore, is not a painful religious obligation. It is a practical, creative necessity that cleanses your consciousness and frees the reflection to confirm a harmonious state. This final philosophical realization of no others ultimately validates the entire structure of the law of assumption. Your persistence is required because you are the one and only source. Your inner conversation must be guarded because it is the only word being spoken. You disregard the sensory evidence because the external figures are merely confirming the old, mistaken assumptions about them. The moment you stand firm in the certainty of your chosen state, you are not standing alone. You are standing with the entirety of consciousness, and every person, every circumstance must play their part, compelled by divine law, to confirm the new reality you have decreed. You control your experience of every person you meet, and therefore you possess the power to live in a world populated only by friendly, supportive, and loving reflections of your highest self. This is the ultimate freedom of the operant power. You are the creative center. Your consciousness is the only reality. You are the I Am. This comprehensive understanding, from the ultimate identity to the practical technique of persistence and the ethical imperative of oneness, completes the foundation of our work. The full mechanism is now laid bare. It only remains for you to choose, consciously, to step fully into this magnificent reality. This sets the stage for our final, most urgent command, the command to act, the final exhortation. The full mechanism is now laid bare. It only remains for you to choose, consciously, to step fully into this magnificent reality. This sets the stage for our final, most urgent command, the command to act, the final exhortation. We have traveled through the most profound depths of metaphysical law this evening, moving from the shocking assertion that imagination is the only reality to the glorious realization that you are the I Am, the sole operant power in your life. We have meticulously detailed the methodology of conscious creation, the law of assumption as the method of choice, Sats as the sacred ritual of implantation, inner conversation as the daily creative breath, revision as the surgical tool of correction, and persistence as the unwavering commitment required to defy the lagging shadow of the 3D world. Finally, we recognize the oneness of consciousness, establishing that the highest application of this power is always rooted in love and blessing, for there are no others to whom you can extend ill will without ultimately commanding the same fate for yourself. The foundation is complete. The tools are in your hands. Now you must act. This moment of intellectual understanding must transition into a moment of spiritual adoption. The greatest error made by the seeker after truth is the delusion that there is time for delay. The very essence of our teaching is that the time is now. because the I Am operates perpetually in the present tense. Creation does not pause while you contemplate strategy or wait for a more convenient moment. Your consciousness is a constant, ceaseless furnace of creation, and if you are not consciously feeding it the perfect fuel of the fulfilled state, you are feeding it the stale, debilitating fuel of fear, lack, and reaction. Therefore, the command to act is not a future instruction, it is an immediate imperative. The greatest sin in this divine order is the failure to imagine lovingly and deliberately. Every moment spent worrying, complaining, or reverting to the state of victimhood is a moment where you, the operant power, are consciously manufacturing a reality of discord and limitation. You must stop waiting for a sign from the outside world. The only sign you will ever need is the internal, subjective, magnificent feeling of your wish fulfilled. You must choose to inhabit that feeling immediately, because the moment of choice is the moment of creation. I implore you, do not treat these principles as merely interesting information to be filed away. The knowledge we have shared demands proof, not merely belief. It demands a test. You must become the scientist of your own soul, utilizing your own life as the ultimate laboratory. The only true measure of this power lies not in my words, but in your demonstrated experience. Therefore, I issue this final, sacred command. Test the law now. Choose a desire that logic dictates is impossible under your current circumstances. A promotion that seems unreachable. A debt that appears too vast. A relationship that seems irreparable. And commit to the discipline required to manifest it. Begin tonight with the sacred ritual of Sats, seeing and feeling the simple, natural reality of the fulfilled end. And when you wake, commit to the relentless vigilance of inner conversation, defending that state against the rising tide of the sensory world. This commitment is where courage is truly born. Courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the persistence in the assumed state, despite the overwhelming physical presence of fear. When the bank statement contradicts your wealth, when the mirror contradicts your health, when the adversary contradicts your harmony, you must stand firm. You must look at the external world and say, you are the reflection of yesterday's misunderstanding. My reality is fixed, and it is fixed within me, in the feeling of my wish fulfilled. This persistence is not struggle. It is the glorious, continuous act of living in the end, maintaining the truth of your I Am against the lies of the shadow world. To persist is to maintain the creative command until the shadow is compelled to obey. The universe does not reward the hopeful. It rewards the persistent assumer. The time for hesitation is over. You have been granted the vision of the mechanism, the knowledge of who you are and how your power works. To retreat now, to revert to the old habits of blame and external searching, would be a profound rejection of your own divinity. It would be a conscious choice to wear the costume of the beggar when the keys to the eternal treasury are already warm in your hand. You are not meant for struggle. You are designed for mastery. You were born to be the conscious operant power, the architect who builds his world with grace, precision, and love. There is no external authority that can grant you this power, for you already possess it in its entirety. Your only limitation is the limit of your own glorious human imagination. And your only delay is the time it takes for you to assume the desired state with unshakable, natural conviction. Therefore, let the command of your soul be clear. Do not delay your transformation for a single moment longer. Begin the change now. Choose the state of the wish, fulfilled with the clarity of vision we have discussed. Go forth and apply the discipline of Sats. Guard your inner conversation as if your life depended on it, because it does. And when the old shadows appear, use the surgical precision of revision to wipe the slate clean. Realize that this knowledge is not merely a path to personal gain, it is the path to spiritual awakening, the path to realizing the absolute oneness of all creation. By imagining lovingly for yourself, you are imagining lovingly for the entire world. Your freedom is the world's freedom. Your abundance is the world's abundance. This comprehensive understanding, from the divine identity of the I Am to the practical discipline of revision, completes the foundation of our work. The full mechanism is now laid bare, complete with its ethical imperative and its promise of absolute certainty. It remains only for you to choose, consciously, to step fully into this magnificent reality. You are the creative center. Your consciousness is the only reality. You are the I Am. Rise now, my friends, and claim the divine inheritance that has always been yours. The time is not tomorrow, or next week, or when circumstances change. The time is now. The time is not tomorrow, or next week, or when circumstances change. The time is now. We have reached the final, decisive moment of our evening together. The entirety of the creative law has been laid bare before you, stripped of its veils, its superstitions, and its complexity. You have journeyed from the initial shocking assertion that imagination is the only reality through the absolute identification of your I Am as the creative source, through the necessary methodology of the law of assumption, and into the specific disciplines of SATS, inner conversation, and revision. You have been armed with the steel of persistence and illuminated by the glorious truth of oneness. The knowledge is complete. The foundation is unshakable. Now, it falls to you to make the ultimate, permanent choice. This conclusion is not merely a summary. It is a grand synthesis, the final chord struck in the symphony of your awakening. Remember the core truth. You are the creative center of your world. The vast, seemingly infinite external reality that surrounds you is nothing more than a perfect reflection of your internal state of consciousness. You are the projector, and the world is the screen. If the image on the screen is undesirable, toiling with the screen is madness. You must return to the projector, the sanctuary of your own imagination, and choose the film you wish to display. This is the simple, non-negotiable mechanism of creation. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is the electricity that powers the projector. It is the divine assent that compels the manifestation. The ultimate resistance to this law is the belief in delay. You must forever excise from your mind the notion that your desire exists in a future time, waiting for favorable external conditions. That is the philosophy of the slave. The truth is that the fulfilled state exists now in the eternal present of your consciousness. Your only task is to assume the feeling of that fulfilled state with such unwavering conviction and naturalness that the entire external world is compelled to shed its past form and conform to your internal reality. The moment you achieve that natural feeling, the work is done. The manifestation is no longer a possibility. It is a foregone conclusion, an inevitability compelled by the divine fidelity of the law of assumption. We have addressed the two great enemies of creation, doubt and time. Doubt, the enemy within, is conquered not by force, but by the gentle, persistent redirection of the inner conversation, buttressed by the instantaneous, cleansing power of revision. Time, the enemy without, is conquered by the commitment to live from the end, utilizing SATS to plant the seed of completion and persistence, to disregard the contradictory evidence of the sensory world. This is the test of faith required of every creator, to stand firm in the internal certainty when all external evidence screams contradiction. You must realize that every apparent failure is merely a signal that your inner conversation momentarily slipped back into the old limiting state. It is not a sign that the law is broken. It is a sign that you must begin again immediately with greater vigilance and compassion for yourself. Failure is only failure when you refuse to revise the moment and return to the chosen state. This final moment is the time for absolute honesty with yourself. You can no longer pretend ignorance. You are now fully aware of the power that resides within you. The greatest betrayal you can commit is to hear this ultimate truth and yet choose to return to the state of victimhood, believing your life is dictated by circumstances beyond your control. That choice is an act of spiritual abdication, a profound rejection of your own divinity. You are the architect of your own destiny, and the world is waiting on your command. What command will you issue tonight? Will you speak the word of lack, or will you speak the word of fulfillment? Will you choose the costume of the beggar, or will you command the universe from the throne of the King? This powerful knowledge is too vast, too essential, and too transformative to be held in isolation. It is meant to be shared, tested, and reinforced within a community of awakened creators. The truth of no others means that when you join a collective dedicated to this law, your commitment is reinforced by the shared energy of those who believe as you do. Therefore, this final command is an invitation, an imperative to reinforce your commitment and deepen your understanding within a community that recognizes the operant power in every member. Do not let this revelation fade into the chaos of the world. This is the decisive moment to affirm your commitment to the law. You must solidify the identity you have now recognized. You must ensure that the environment you immerse yourself in is one that constantly confirms the reality of your I am. I command you now, do not delay your transformation for a single moment longer. You have heard the law. You understand the mechanism. Your only remaining task is the application. Let the next 30 days be a perpetual laboratory where you demand proof from your own consciousness. Use SATs tonight. Guard your inner conversation throughout the day. Revise every negative slip instantly. Live from the end. The choice is yours, but the law is absolute. Your world is your inner conversation pushed out. Go forth now, with the full knowledge of your creative power, and create wonderfully. Commit to this path, and ensure that your dedication is supported by the collective certainty of others who recognize the God within you. The time is not tomorrow, or next week, or when circumstances change. The time is now. May your imagination be blessed, and may you forever walk in the absolute certainty of the fulfilled state. Thank you, and good night. You have heard the law. You understand the mechanism. Your only remaining task is the application. Let the next 30 days be a perpetual laboratory where you demand proof from your own consciousness. Use SATs tonight. Guard your inner conversation throughout the day. Revise every negative slip instantly. Live from the end. The time for hesitation is over. You are no longer permitted the luxury of confusion. You possess the blueprint of absolute creative power. Therefore, I issue this final, non-negotiable command, not as a request, but as the affirmation of your new identity. It is time to make this spiritual commitment visible. If you have absorbed this truth and recognize yourself as the I am, then you must align yourself with the community that affirms this reality. I command you now, subscribe to this channel. By doing so, you are not merely supporting a platform, you are publicly declaring your allegiance to the law of assumption and ensuring that the teachings necessary for your continuous self-mastery, the deeper insights into revision, the precise application of SATs, and the philosophical proofs of oneness remain your constant, inescapable reality. Do not be a silent seeker, be an active, conscious creator. Affirm your commitment now and receive the final benediction of this teaching. The choice is yours, but the law is absolute. Your world is your inner conversation pushed out. Go forth now with the full knowledge of your creative power and create wonderfully. Commit to this path and ensure that your dedication is supported by the collective certainty of others who recognize the God within you. The time is not tomorrow, or next week, or when circumstances change. The time is now.